Hello everyone, welcome to Git Commands Part 2. In this tutorial, we'll talk about different commands: git status, git add, git commit, git push, and we'll see how we can connect our local source code to the remote repository. Okay, the next command that we are going to learn is git status. What does it do? It's a very useful command that we will use it a lot of times, not during this tutorial, but during the real world application. And it gives us the status of all of the files that we are going to track and some other useful information that it will help us to move forward with the flow that we are trying to do. So in this situation that we have, we can just do, this is the command that we want to use, git status. And if I send this, it gives me some information. It first says that on branch main, we will talk about branches later, but it gives us some information that we are on the main branch. And then it says no commits yet. It means that we have not committed anything. We will talk about commits also as well. And it says nothing to commit. So these are the very useful information for now. And it means that we have not done anything. So along with the tutorial, I'll send this git status and it will show you more information, and I will describe it later to learn more about git status. So if I, for example, add a new file inside of our folder, so I can just add a new file and call it file, and let's assume that it's a text file. So if I add it here and then come back and say git status, you'll see that, let me clear the view first so you see it doesn't messed up, git status. So now it shows again on the main branch, no commit yet, but it added a new category. It says that on tracked files, I found a file.txt. So this is more information comparing to the previous situation that we had. These are the things that I would say we will learn more about it once we go through the commands, and I will send this git status more often during the tutorial. So get used to it and learn that this command is just gives us more status of the git. So that's all about git status. Okay, now git recognizes that we added this file .txt, or this file is just created. Now what should we do to let the git know that we want to track this file and we want to track all of the changes that we will make to this file? So the next command in order to stage this file or make it prepare for tracking is git add. So it's very simple. You say git add and you give the path of this file. So currently it's in the root folder, so I don't have to add the full path, but if it was inside of a different folder, I should give the full path. Now I can just say file.txt. And okay, after this file, I want to see what the report is telling me, how's the report changes. So I send the git status command that we just learned. We say git status, and this time I see there's a difference from previous time. It used to show it under untracked files, but right now it is showing it as changes to be committed. So this is the new section, and we no longer have untracked file, because right now we have a tracked file right here. So this is git add. So next I want to add, for example, another file. So let me add a new file and I will call it readme.md. This is a readme file. Usually you'll see it inside of the applications that they put the instruction of the application. So I added this file in readme file, so it is not added yet, so I can get a git status again. So let me clear stuff so you don't get confused. Git, oh, so no, just clear. So I clear the commands, and now I get git status. So now see, this is still the file text that we had still is under committed, but we added a new file which is becoming the untracked files, like what we had for file before. And now it says that, okay, so it's untracked, do you want to track it? And we can add it again like the previous one that we did. We can say git add readme.md, something like this. And now if I clear the commands and say git status, sorry, see, it again added under the committed. Now I want to add a new folder right here. Let me add a new folder, and I will call it src, and I will add bunch of files inside of this src folder. So I'll say, I'll put the random names. Basically I can say file 1.txt, all of them are text files, file 1, and I can copy paste it and put it back here. So I can say copy and paste it again, this time call it file 2, and then again paste 3, and then paste again, this one 4. So now I will do git status again to see what I added in my git repository. I say git status to see what is going on here. So first it says, okay, so I have two files that you can see in here, and they are committed. I mean, they are ready to be committed. We don't know the commit command yet, but we know that it means that these files are staged. And then it says there are some untracked files. Now it shows the folder, because we added a folder, it shows something like this. And if we want to add the files, now we can just say git add, and then we have to give the path of file 1 src, otherwise it will complain and say that there is no file 1. If I put file 1.txt, it says fatal, did not match any files, because this file is not in the root folder. We should give it the correct path, so it is inside of the src folder. So if I add git add and give it the right path and then hit enter, see, there is no complaint. And if I do git status right now, git status, you will see that one of the files that we added is still here. It goes to green, and it is ready to be committed, and it's staged. Basically, I'm using a different terminology so you get familiar what we say in development industry. So now there are 3 more files left. I can go ahead and add them manually, but there is an easier way to do it. So I can go ahead and say git add and then src and give the file path too, but in order to add all of them together, I can just go ahead and do git add dot, and it means that add all of the untracked files to the git. So if I do that and then do git status again, let me clear stuff, git status, now you'll see all of my files became green and they are staged right now. So this is another way to add stuff. Okay, we can use git add command for the times that we want to have some changes to the existing files. We learned how to use git add for the files that we just created, but we want to see if we can use it for the time that we have some existing file and we want to change it. So if currently I do git status, I see there are number of files that we added listed here, and if I change something on a file.txt, I can just say hello web and I save it, and then I do git status again. Let me clear the thing. Git status again, you will see that from this list we still have file.txt because it is initially added, but under the changes and not stages section, you will see that this file is also listed because it detected the changes, and it uh, wants to say, okay, so there are some files that are staged, and these are the files that are not staged. These changes are not staged. So I can go ahead and just add this like the previous time, git add, and this file. And then if I do the status again, let me clear the stuff, git status again. So you'll see that there is no longer file text is listed here. For this time, just ignore this IDE. This is added by IDE file. I can just go ahead and remove it. This file, we will talk about this IDE, how we can get rid of it. But for now, just to not confuse you, let's focus on the thing that we just did. We made some changes on the file, and then we use git add to add these changes. So now if I do the same thing for readme file or any other files, it will do the same thing. I can just say, this time I say hello world and save it, and then clear stuff here, and then git status, and you'll see there are some files that we had staged, and also we have some untracked or sorry, some not staged files, and one of them is file one. So we can use git add and give it a path of the file. So you will add that file, so the next time that we do git status, it is added to the changes to be committed section. Okay, the next step after a git add is commit. When we add these changes, we need to commit to our changes. This is the next step, and it will be the next command that we will learn. And how do we use it? We say git commit, and it should be -m. I'll talk about why it's -m. But now, inside of quotation, I want to write something that I will remember what are these changes. It can be anything. You can just add anything that you would like to type, and it will get it and will record it, so you can remember it later what files you have changed or what feature you added or what portion you have changed. So in order to remember, I can just say added bunch of files. So the more descriptive it is later, it's useful for you to recognize what was the changes that you made. I added and hit enter, and you'll see it gives you some report, and it says it added these files to the commit. So now, as soon as I add it, you'll see I can do the git status again to see what is the status, how a status changed. So I clear the stuff that I added here and say git status, and it says nothing to commit, working tree is clean. So it removed all of the green stuff, untracked file and everything, because we already committed. Okay, the last portion that we can say we finalize our tracking for changes on Git is the time that we push to our repository online. And it's very simple command, and based on what you just mentioned, it says git push. And we can just mention it here for all the times that we do later, but there is one step that we have to do before this, and this is we will do it only for one time for each repo. So if you do it one time, you don't have to do it later for this project. But if you create a new project, new repo, you have to do it again. So if you remember, we added this new repo on GitHub, if you remember that, in a previous tutorial. It gave us two options. When you go to this URL, it gave us two options, and it says if you create a new repository from the command line, you have to use these set of commands. But since we have an existing repository, we call this repository source code basically. Since we have it existing, we need to use these commands. And what does it do basically? It's give us a command to give our repository an origin. Currently, it doesn't have origin, and we need to add an origin for the remote, because this repo, this is how we connect our local repository to upstream or remote repository, which is called GitHub. So it gave us this command. I just copy it and I'll paste it here. Oops, my paste was not the right one. I have to copy it from here and then go here and paste it here. It basically says git remote add origin. So it adds the origin to this repository, and I can say hit enter. And then the next command is, it basically goes to the branch that we talk, and here it's a branch main that we have on our repository. And now for the first time we can use git push. And these are the three commands that it's suggested to use, and I use exactly like what it suggested. So git push that u origin main. So now it pushed to our repository. So it gives us some visual reports that what is it doing. It says that there's a new branch. We have a main branch that we had, and also it gives you some progress during the files. Currently there are very small files that we didn't see the progress. It just came out 100%. But if you have many files, it starts from the progress bar. It's just give you an activity indicator that it is doing something. But that's all we need to know. Now if I go back to the repository and refresh the page, because we pushed stuff into it, it no longer gives us that option to show these items. It just shows the files that we have, which are readme file, file text, src. If I go to the src, I see file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4, exactly like the repo or source code that we have here. So basically we pushed all of our changes to the repository, and now we can keep track of our file from our system. So now I can review the things that we've done. I can just add a new file or make a change to the existing file and see if I can push the changes again with the commands that we just learned. So I add some changes to the readme file. I can say use full links. So currently, if I save this and if I go back to the repository and go to the readme file, there's nothing in readme file. As you can see, there's nothing here. So it's empty. But now I want to push the new change to the repository. I said the first command, I can clear the commands here. The first command is add. I can say git add and give it readme.md. So I can readme.md. So it added, and I can get git status here to see what is going on with the status of my file. It mentions that readme file has modified, and I already added. As I said, just disregard this ID. I will talk about it later. But what we care here is readme file. And now the next command, I mentioned that git commit. I want to say git commit dash. I said that dash m. We have different parameters that we will send, but for adding a message for our commit, we can use dash m. And what do I want to give a message for myself later? I can say edited readme file. That's all for my own purpose for understanding what was this commit about. And then I can just use git push to push my changes. And as you can see, it gave again another report and says that it pushed to the main branch. If I now go to the repository and refresh the page and I go to readme file, now I see it has my change, useful links here. That is how you commit and push it to the repository.